Hello, my name is Andy Provenzano, and I'm here with Chris Peterson.
Good evening.
Today we're going to be talking a little bit about social reforms in the early 19th century. We're going to start off with slavery, anti-slavery movement. We're going to go a little bit into women's rights and women's suffrage, and then you can't really talk about the subject without mentioning um, the self-restraint movement. We're not going to really touch too much on that, but I just like to talk about it for a second. It's pretty much the idea that the free individual was the person who internalized the practice of self-control. So it's more or less a moral right to control yourself with drinking and with swearing and just the morals of life. So I'd like to start off a little bit with the slavery movement. So I guess I'd like to start out by asking you, how do you think David Walker's appeal helped the slavery reform in the early 1900s?
I think David Walker's appeal helped slavery reform in many ways. Um, David Walker wrote an appeal to the colored citizens of the world and just explained that nobody in the history of the world ever had it worse than the American slaves, and that no matter what happened in America, slaves always were treated worse than any other immigrants flowing over from Europe. Um, I think his appeal had a positive impact on the reform in America in the early 1800s. If people had saw or heard the appeal to the colored citizens of the world, they would get the idea that they do have it worse than anybody else, and it would drive them to join the reform movement and go to greater heights to get the freedom that they deserve.
Nice. All right. So to go along with that, do you think that what Frederick Douglass said on the 4th of July had a positive impact on the slavery reform? And do you think it was, as a whole, the Anti-Slavery Act was successful?
So Frederick Douglass on July 4th kind of just asked what the 4th of July is to American slaves. 4th of July is meant for celebrating Americans' freedom, but at the same time, while the Americans were celebrating their freedom, they were taking the freedom of the slaves and just kind of being hypocrites about the whole freedom aspect of the Declaration of Independence. So at the end of the oration, he said, he ends the oration by saying, what America was doing to slaves is worse than anything else going on in the entire world, which makes revolting barbarity and shameless hypocrisy hard to go against. And he just says, America reigns without a rival. And that, I think, had a huge impact on the slavery reform. It grabbed everybody's attention, realized what was going on was cruel and a terrible thing. And it was known to be the greatest oration on American slavery and American freedom of the reform movement. So I think it was just had such a positive impact.
So you think it was very successful?
Yeah, very
Definitely.
successful.
Gotcha. Now we're going to go to our on-the-scene reporter, Rich Piana. He is there with Angelina Grimke. Rich?
Hello, my name is Rich Piana, and today I'm here with Angelina Grimke. Angelina, tell me how you feel about men and women's equality.
I believe whatever is morally right for women to do is morally right for men to do. I recognize no rights but human rights.
Then tell me, why do you feel this way?
She was created like him in the image of God, and crowned with the glory and honor created only lower than the angels.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rich. Now back to the studio with Andy Provenzano.
Andy, when talking about the women's suffrage reform, who do you think were the most influential women involved in the reform?
Well, when it comes to women's rights and women's suffrage, you really got to talk about two main people. One is Angelina Grimke, and the other is Elizabeth Stanton. Now, to talk a little bit about Angelina, she really talked a lot about what makes men and women equal, and why, as God created the earth, He created man and women together, and all creatures are created equal. And so, why women are not being treated equal in the law or in the way that the house is run. So, she really harped on one of her quotes was, "If rights were founded in the line or in moral beings, then the circumstance of sex could not give a man higher rights and responsibilities than a woman." So pretty much she's laying the question of why do men have more rights than women? Like where does that even come from, and why is it still being, portrayed? And so she said that there's no difference between sexual orient or your sex than gender, than race or hair color or skin color or anything like that. I think she did a really good job in this reform, and she was very successful with it. But at the same time, she was fighting against not only men but also females that were anti women's rights. A name that comes up is Catherine Beecher Stowe, and she did a lot of talking about like duties of American female women that they should be subordinate to men, and that nothing else should change the way that they've been brought up. Lastly is the lady named Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and what she did, she wrote a list of injustices towards women, and the biggest one was the right to vote, which is women's suffrage. And essentially, in her list, she talks a lot about the moral irresponsibilities that men have created women to be portrayed as, and how what they have done is destroyed women's confidence in society and in the workplace, and how they've made her civilly dead in the eyes of the law. I think she was also very successful, but more towards the right to vote. It's not easy standing up against social ways, and the way that she did it was very impressive. To close out, I guess all of our information was taken from documents 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, and 78 in Eric Foner's Voices of Freedom. And we will be back next Tuesday to talk more about why the Civil War is so impactful in American society. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you.